Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're cracking open some really unique source material all about money. But this is not your typical spreadsheets and stock market deep dive.
Not at all.
Our mission here is to look at transforming a relationship that, for so many people, is just deeply painful and confusing. We're moving past that old fear-based financial advice. And we're going to explore a framework that says true financial well-being, it comes from tackling the emotional and systemic barriers first. Only then can you build systems that actually work with our human flaws, not against them.
Exactly. The core premise we looked at, and it's largely from Paco de Leon's framework, is that finance is really about self-discovery. It's not just a math test.
Self-discovery, that's interesting.
Yeah, it invites you to look at your personal narratives, the unconscious beliefs you have about money that are driving all your behavior. It's a very engaging approach, mixing mindfulness with some very practical illustrated guidance.
Okay, so we have to start where the author starts. Confronting the fact that money is just so tied up with confusion and shame for almost everyone. So why? Why does money create this collective weirdness? The sources open with this observation that just feels so true. People are weird about money.
They really are.
It feels like this universal thing, this, internal conflict we all have.
It is. And the author actually breaks down the formula for this universal weirdness. It's kind of a toxic brew.
A formula, okay.
Yeah, you take negative emotions, you add these huge gaps in genuine confusion about how loans or taxes work, and you mix in limiting personal beliefs. But here's the kicker. All of that gets multiplied by societal inequality and classism.
So we're taught the rules are confusing, and then we're basically shamed if we can't play the game.
Exactly.
But is it just about avoiding the conversation? Or is the shame worse because the system itself feels like there's no clear way out?
That's where the taboo really hurts. That awkward silence at the dinner table when someone mentions credit card debt?
Oh, yeah.
That's not just discomfort. It's a signal that financial struggle has to be hidden. And that isolation, that just creates more shame. And when we hide it, that dysfunction keeps operating in the background, influencing decisions we don't even realize we're making.
So if we can't talk about it out loud, then we have to at least acknowledge this powerful hidden part of ourselves.
Absolutely. This brings us right to the subconscious, or what Carl Jung called the shadow self.
The shadow self.
In finance, that means confronting all the unacknowledged hidden parts of our financial identity, the limiting beliefs, the behaviors that lead to self-sabotage. And the material is really clear on this. It says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate.
Wow. That is a powerful line. So the internal battle is our shadow self, but that battle is just amplified by what's happening outside. How does all that stress from, say, wider economic disparities, how does that actually hurt our ability to make good decisions?
Well, when you have chronic financial stress, it literally compromises your cognitive decision-making. Research shows it hits your executive function.
So your brain is just tired.
Exactly. People are too stressed and exhausted to make the best long-term choices. And that can lead to impulsive behavior, normalizing debt, or, falling for high-risk schemes. It's not a personal failing. It's a predictable outcome of stress.
Okay, let's unpack this and shift into some practical solutions. The sources really push back against traditional budgeting because it just reinforces this constant feeling of scarcity.
Right.
So how do we get out of that mental trap of always feeling like we don't have enough?
It starts with just acknowledging how we're wired. Our brains are built to scan for danger and to constantly compare ourselves to others.
And social media just pours gasoline on that fire.
It absolutely does. It highlights these curated, unattainable lives.
Yes.
So the sources argue the antidote isn't getting more stuff. It's consciously creating a feeling of sufficiency.
And the internal work for that is this practice called grateful flow, just reflecting on 3 things you're thankful for. But how is gratitude a financial tool? It sounds a little bit, fluffy.
I get that, but it's not just about feeling nice. It's a diagnostic tool. It interrupts that impulse to consume.
Ah, okay.
By consciously thinking, what do I have right now that is enough? If you break that comparison cycle, it tells your nervous system to calm down for a second before chasing the next dopamine hit from a purchase.
That makes a lot of sense. So you have the internal work sufficiency, and that pairs with the second strategy, which is building systems. This is where we get Paco's law.
Yes.
Your spending will equal what you have available to spend.
It's so true. Because we just tend to spend whatever is right there in front of us. We need external limits.
If the money is in your checking account, you will find a way to spend it.
You absolutely will.
Okay, so tell me exactly how the famous anti-budget system works. What boundaries does it put in place?
So instead of tracking every little thing, it uses structure. You set up 2 separate checking accounts.
2 accounts.
Yep. One is just for bills in life, the essentials, rent, insurance, all automated. The second one is for fun and BS, all the non-essentials. And once the money's divided up, you're only allowed to spend what's in that fun and BS account.
So you're not constantly making decisions.
Exactly. This simple boundary removes so much friction, and it reduces the potential for making, as the source puts it, crappy decisions.
It's a great way to protect yourself from yourself. We all know that feeling of buying something and then the thrill is gone, like instantly. The material calls it the hedonic treadmill.
Right. And you know your system is failing if you start seeing the key signs. You're saving less than 5% of your income, your credit card balance is creeping up, or you have no emergency fund.
All right, moving from spending systems to long-term strategy. Let's talk about success. The author once had a goal to have no goals. This is where it gets really interesting for me.
It's a huge shift in thinking. The realization came from seeing how limited, rigid traditional goals are. The source calls them crude, blunt instruments.
Crude, blunt instruments. I like that.
They just don't account for how dynamic life is. And when something big happens, a pandemic, a recession, those rigid targets lead straight to feelings of personal failure.
So the answer isn't to just give up, it's to fall in love with the process, not the outcome.
Exactly.
When you focus on behaviors, on consistency, there are fewer rules about what the end has to look like. So there are, and I'm quoting here, more ways there are to win.
It's about focusing on the daily habits, the inputs, not just the distant high-stakes finish line. But then Chapter 5 drops this massive realization that really challenges that whole frugality-first culture.
Okay.
The author's personal discovery was this: I needed to earn more, not spend less.
That's a huge statement.
Yeah.
But for someone who's really struggling to make rent, how do they get past the mindset that cutting costs is the only thing they can do?
Well, the source puts it really bluntly. You can't out-frugal under-earning.
You can't out-frugal under-earn.
You can cut and cut and cut, but if your income is just fundamentally too low, real security is always going to be out of reach. So you have to shift your focus from defense cutting costs to offense, which is increasing your income.
And the material doesn't frame earning as some fixed number. It calls it a skill and an experiment.
Exactly. It encourages you to see earning as an experiment that just needs practice. Maybe that means spending an hour a week researching your market value or practicing a salary negotiation script. It turns income growth into a manageable process. And it helps you challenge those limiting beliefs, like, the idea that making money can't be easy or that you shouldn't be paid well for work you actually enjoy. So since we know that something like 45% of our daily actions are just habit, we're basically on autopilot like zombies. We have to use technology to make the hard things easy. Automating your savings, whether it's a 401k contribution or just a transfer to a savings account, it's essential. It bypasses your bad habits.
And that automation is absolutely critical for setting up an emergency fund, which is your first line of defense. So what's the best practice for keeping that money safe from yourself?
The sources are really strong on this. Open a dedicated high-yield money market account. And this is the key part. Do it at a different bank than your spending account.
A different bank?
Yeah. That little bit of psychological friction, having to log into a whole separate system, it really reduces the temptation to dip into it for things that aren't emergencies. And you need that buffer. Financial shocks are inevitable.
Okay, so once that buffer is in place, the next challenge is to fight that invisible foe that makes our savings lose value over time. And that foe is, of course, inflation.
Inflation is just the steady decrease in your money's purchasing power. Prices go up. The brutal truth is that just saving money in cash guarantees you will lose value over time.
So your money is effectively shrinking.
It is. If your savings aren't earning more than the, say, 2 to 3% inflation rate the Fed targets, you are guaranteed to lose purchasing power every single year.
So investing becomes the only real long-term defense against inflation. It's not just a tool for the wealthy.
Not at all. The core message is to start early, even with tiny amounts, so you can harness the magic of compounding.
That amazing snowball effect.
Yes, where your returns start earning their own returns. The earlier you start, the more time that magic has to work for you. #outro.
So what does this all mean? The journey here, it starts with the emotional work. You have to confront the taboos, the shadow self, the weirdness around money. Then you move to building proactive systems, the anti-budget, focusing on process, automating your savings. All of these things work around our natural human tendencies rather than fighting them with, willpower and denial.
It's all about claiming your agency. Once you understand these mechanics, your own biases, the structural barriers, you can start to use money as a simple, powerful tool to build the life you want.
Instead of it being a source of shame.
Exactly.
And on that idea of money as a tool, let's leave you with one final thought from the source material about borrowing money. It's described as an incredible time-traveling tool.
I love that framing.
You are taking resources from your future self to use right now. And the true cost of that debt isn't just the interest rate, it's the life, energy, and mental space you spend managing it every single day.
Which leaves you with a really important question to think about. What strategic debt, like a mortgage or an investment in a new skill, what might be worth that cost of your future life energy? And on the flip side, what non-essential debt is costing you far, far more than just the dollar amount on your statement?
Think about the cost of that debt on your peace of mind. It's been a great deep dive, and we hope you have the tools to start building a system that finally works for you.